collapse is common to all things. The collapse of a house, the collapse of a body, the collapse of your opponent. All of them, according to the moment, are collapses from a discordance of rhythm. Welcome back to Vagabond, Volume 6 of the Vizbigs. And in Volume 6, this actually kind of just feels like a continuation of the last volume, which was really kind of surprising to me because of the way that the last volume ended. It felt like we really could have been done with Kojiro, or at least transitioned back over to Musashi and follow him for a little while, and then we would probably just leapfrog our way through the story following the two of them from there. But we really just stick with Kojiro, and it just kind of felt like a continuation of the last volume. Like I said, I was quite surprising to me. Not that that's a bad thing, not that I have any problems with continuing to follow Kojiro, because he is so wonderfully fascinating and I'm just enjoying every second of it. I just didn't see that coming. Anyway, this volume starts off, like I said, right where the last one left off, with Kojiro's master continuing to refuse to train him. When pretty early on in the story, the master's old apprentice, the one that showed up a few years back and noticed immediately that Kojiro was deaf, comes back around, and this time he's going to immediately see Kojiro's potential and basically immediately start testing him and training him in a sense. And he does this first off pretty much just by picking a fight with him, after which he says this one is a tiger. After that, he has him pretty much fight a group of samurai that have come to challenge Kanimaki, and instead of him fighting them, he pretty much lets Kojiro fight them in his place, kinda. And in this group, the most interesting member of the entire group by far is a young Densi Churro, who I did not expect to see show up, and was quite interesting and quite fascinating, and I really enjoyed having him show up because it gives you not only a glimpse into, Kojiro's life and his young training and upbringing and all of that, but we also get to see a flashback of Denjichiro back when he used to be young, and his continued quest to become a better samurai, better fighter, and a better, swordsman in general. And it's also just a fascinating look into his life, period, because he just seems to be lacking as a swordsman, both back then and now, and just overall in general. I mean, he is a good swordsman, but his father gives the dojo to his brother. He's a good swordsman, but he goes here and he just can't seem to keep up. He's a good swordsman later, and he fights with Musashi, but he just doesn't seem to have it. But what he does have is this absurd drive and determination and this tenacity to just be better and compete with these other people on a level that maybe he's not capable of, but is he ultimately eventually going to be able to brute force his way into being equals with them? It's such a fascinating look into his character in general. And he even recognizes that there's just something missing from himself to keep him from being on their level. He'll even, in the middle of the fight with the Kojiro, stab himself in the leg, even though he's already the underdog in the fight, just to level some playing field in his own mind and to give him the same drawback that his opponent has in some attempt to maybe make this breakthrough into some type of thinking, some type of understanding that the other people have that he just doesn't seem to. Anyway, after the fight, he is laying down recovering, and as he's recovering, he has a dream of two men who agree to cease fighting and separate ways just in order to become better fighters and reconvene at a later time, which is essentially him having a dream of what will ultimately happen between him and Musashi. It's also after this fight that Kojiro's ultimately going to choose to leave his master, and he's going to go off and he's going to start to travel with the other pupil, Kanimaki. And I would say that it's at this point that he starts his training with Kanimaki, but it did not really, at least he doesn't really train him in a traditional sense. It's more akin to him just throwing different situations at him and see how he handles them. Also, this guy is pretty much anything but like kind and gentle. His methods are quite aggressive and quite harsh, bordering on cruel. That's not to say that they're ineffective. That's also not to say that he doesn't greatly respect Kojiro as a man and a swordsman. He's just definitely not the same type of teacher that the last one was. Anyway, eventually he's going to make a sign for Kojiro to carry around on his back that pretty much just says who Kojiro is and what he is and whatnot, and basically invite people to come and challenge him, which actually works, and it incites this other guy who has a sign on his back that pretty much announcing the exact same thing. They fight. Kojiro literally mops the floor with this guy, which then turns into him kind of following Kojiro around like a little lackey, and now it's the three of them traveling around together. And now with these three traveling together, they're going to come across the aftermath of the Battle of Sekigahara. Or kind of. There's still some fighting going on, which they will very quickly become involved in. And Kojiro's going to fight several people, or groups of people, kind of soldiers that are left over from this battle. Until suddenly a man shows up, fighting like a beast. And it is Musashi. Or more accurately, it is Takehiko. And this was an absolute, complete high point for the book for me. I mean, it is supposed to be a high point for the book, I think. But, it was way above and beyond what I think it was originally even intended to be. Just the fact that we get our two main characters that I have come to really love quite deeply together on the page at the same time. We also get to see them not yet in the future or the present timeline. It's more like a little flashback, which was just fascinating and fun. I don't know. I just think I had more fun with this than I was supposed to have with it. And I think I was supposed to have quite a bit of fun with it, if that says anything. Anyway, at one point we get a shot of them back to back, and then immediately they spin around and face each other. And that's followed up by a shot of the teacher dude saying their instincts tell them that they are not enemies, which is interesting. Because these are the two greatest swordsmen of all time, or at least they will be. They will also, at some point in the future, have to battle. And I just love this revelation in general because they do not see themselves as enemies, even though later they will be rivals. And even when they're rivals, I would imagine they still probably don't see each other as actual enemies. Being rivals and being enemies isn't necessarily the same thing. And even both of those two things can still harbor great respect for the other. And I think that's ultimately where this is going to end up going. But ultimately, they will go their separate ways. And at this point, Kanimaki realizes that he does not even know what Kojiro's true potential really is. He also, at this point in the story, realizes that he doesn't really know how to train Kojiro or what to do for him other than to just put him through the paces and put him through what he went through and see what he becomes. And like I said, this volume was just so surprising for me. Firstly, like I said before, because it follows Kojiro again, and I didn't expect it to. Nor did I expect while we were following him that he would ever cross paths with Takehiko. So that was surprising. Then, this just blows my mind how surprised I can be by an entire volume of this. And I have read the book that this is based on, and it still has this ability to completely surprise me almost at every turn. At the same time, the spirit of this manga feels like it is uncompromisingly faithful to the source material. And with it feeling that faithful in spirit, to also not cease to be able to twist and turn and surprise and subvert my expectations is just a sheer magnificent feat. I don't even have words for how impressive it is that this is able to do that, to walk both of those paths simultaneously. Way to go, Inoue. I'm just constantly amazed. at what he's able to do with this story as he writes it. And I say that from the perspective, well, first off, I say it as because the story is just amazing. But once you add in the perspective of having the source material for this under your belt as well, and then reading it after the fact, it's just like, this is a lot of skill on a writing level. And I just have nothing but good things to say about it. I've just speechless. It sometimes just leaves me speechless. Anyway, now having just thrown all that ridiculous praise out there, I'm actually going to dial this volume back to a 9. I gave the last one a 9.5 just because I was so utterly impressed with the backstory of, I almost said Takehiko, of Kojiro, and I'm just completely fascinated by it. But this one actually, for like the first, I don't know, half of it, it was just great. It's kind of settled back into its normal, I'm just a completely excellent 9 of a manga. So that's where this one's gonna live. Anyway, as always, everybody, the link for my Patreon's in the description below. The link for my Discord's in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.